Imagine you're driving a $15 million, 1,000 horsepower missile. You're doing like 200 miles per hour into a hairpin.
Right. And you're constantly fighting the wheel.
Right, exactly. You're tweaking brake bias, you're dialing in engine braking on the steering wheel. But right when you go to make a split-second adjustment to hold off a Ferrari, your digital display just completely freezes.
It literally takes a screenshot of itself. Just boom, frozen.
Yes. You lose your telemetry, you lose your rhythm, and suddenly you lose track position. And the crazy thing is, that actually happened this season. So, welcome to this deep dive.
Yeah, it's been an unbelievable start to the year.
It really has. Today, we are digging into all of our internal data, the telemetry, the paddock whispers. We're on a very specific mission. Because, on paper, this championship looks completely locked down by an invincible Mercedes team. But we want to know, are they actually vulnerable?
And that steering wheel glitch, that is the absolute perfect entry point because it shows the fragility of these insane machines. I mean, we are in the middle of the April break right now, right?
Yeah, you look at social media, it looks like everyone's on a beach.
Exactly. It looks like a vacation.
Yeah.
But behind closed doors in Brackley, Woking, Maranello, it is a bloodbath. It is a ruthless engineering arms race. Mercedes has this terrifying raw speed, but McLaren and Ferrari are tearing apart the data to find those tiny, exploitable cracks in the armor.
And the mind games they are playing to find those cracks are just wild. We're talking about teams intentionally hiding cars from early testing to game the budget cap.
Oh, it's absolute high-stakes poker right now.
It really is. But, before we can talk about how the challengers are planning to dismantle Mercedes, we have to talk about the giant they are trying to slay.
Yeah, we have to look at the baseline pace Mercedes laid down, because honestly, it's staggering.
It's terrifying. Let's start with their qualifying dominance. We look back at the season opener in Australia. George Russell puts that Mercedes on pole, and the gap to the next fastest car, Isaac Hadjar in the Red Bull, is almost 0.8 of a second.
Which is just absurd.
He puts the exact same gap on Charles Leclerc's Ferrari. 0.8. I mean, for anyone listening, in Formula One, 0.8 of a second isn't just fast. That is a completely different time zone.
Right. Normally, we are measuring the front of the grid in hundredths or, thousandths of a second. So when our internal numbers show an 0.8 advantage, it means Mercedes has unlocked something fundamental.
Like an aerodynamic philosophy nobody else even thought of.
Exactly. Downforce is that invisible hand crushing the car into the tarmac, right? It gives you grip. But usually, more downforce creates massive drag on the straights. Mercedes is somehow generating monstrous cornering grip without that drag penalty. It's an aerodynamic masterclass.
And it didn't stop there. We go to the sprint in China. Russell is 0.6 ahead of Lando Norris. Then we hit the main Q3 section.
Oh, the Q3 shootout.
Right. The engines are turned up to maximum overdrive. Kimi Antonelli takes pole from Mercedes, nearly 0.4 ahead of Lewis Hamilton, the first non-Mercedes car.
And you know what? That 0.4 gap in China is actually a lie.
Wait, what do you mean?
It should have been much, much bigger. If you look at our telemetry from that session, Russell had a mechanical anomaly on his final run. Looking at his delta from Q2, he was on track to replicate that massive 6 or 0.8 gap. The raw pace of that car in clean air is just devastating.
But then, and this is where it gets so incredibly interesting, we go to Suzuka, the Japanese Grand Prix. And this is the moment the invincible giant takes a massive hook to the jaw.
Yeah, they finally showed they could bleed.
Antonelli still gets pole, right? He's the only guy to break into the 1.28s. Puts out a ridiculous 1.28.778. But Sunday was a totally different beast.
Sunday proved the concept.
Because Oscar Piastri in the McLaren gets a total rocket ship launch. He snatches the lead and just holds off Russell lap after lap in clean air.
Piastri laid down the exact blueprint. He ended up second because of an incredibly unlucky safety car that completely ruined his tire strategy. But before that, he proved that if you beat Mercedes off the line, you can completely neutralize them.
Let's unpack the physics of that for a second. We hear about dirty air constantly, but right now it is the ultimate weapon against Mercedes, isn't it?
Oh, it's their kryptonite. When Piastri's leading, his McLaren is basically acting like a 200-mile-per-hour fan, just destroying the air behind it.
Leaving this massive, chaotic wake.
Exactly. An F1 car needs perfectly smooth, clean air over the front wing and under the floor to stick to the track. When that Mercedes drives into Piastri's wake, it loses a massive chunk of its downforce.
So the car gets nervous, it starts sliding around.
Yes. It slides, the tires overheat instantly from the friction, and poof, that 0.8 pace advantage is completely gone.
Wow. So if dirty air is the weapon, McLaren is aggressively trying to build the biggest fan possible. Since they tasted blood in Japan, our internal paddock intel is screaming that they are bringing a monster upgrade to Miami.
The MCL40 package. And let me tell you, this is not just a tweak to a front wing end plate.
No.
Not even close. The numbers coming out of their internal computational fluid dynamics simulations are unbelievably aggressive. It's a complete evolutionary step for the chassis.
They're sitting 89 points behind Mercedes right now.
Hmm.
But you look at the team in Woking, the mindset is completely transformed. Lando Norris is out for blood, hunting that first podium. Piastri just went wheel to wheel with the Mercedes and survive.
They don't want to just be the chaser anymore. They want to be the primary threat.
But here is the craziest part of the McLaren story. How do they even afford this massive upgrade so early? Because we're in the budget cap era. Every single dollar is scrutinized.
This is where Andrea Stella, their team principal, pulled an absolute masterstroke.
Right, so let's look at the timeline. Before the season started, everyone went to Barcelona for the shakedown test. Teams like Ferrari brought a vanilla Spec A car just to make sure the engine's fired up properly.
But McLaren didn't.
They completely stayed home. They kept the garage shut.
Stella realized that manufacturing a temporary carbon fiber car, shipping it to Spain, and burning valuable track time was a complete waste of resources if they were never actually going to race those parts.
That is such an insane psychological gamble. Can you imagine telling your drivers and sponsors, hey guys, everyone else is out practicing, but we're going to sit in the factory and save our pennies?
It takes nerves of steel. But think about the payoff. By skipping that test, they saved millions under the budget cap. And more importantly, they banked a massive amount of wind tunnel allocation time.
And they just dumped all of that saved time and money straight into this MCL40 upgrade for Miami.
Exactly. In this new regulation cycle, the development curve is basically vertical. The gains you find right now dictate your entire trajectory for the next 2 years. McLaren sacrificed day 1 to completely dominate day 50.
It's brilliant. But McLaren isn't the only one hunting Mercedes.
Yeah.
Ferrari has a completely different weapon, and honestly, a totally different fatal flaw.
Yeah, their profile is almost the exact opposite of McLaren's right now.
The telemetry shows Ferrari's chassis is unbelievable. Through slow-speed corners, they are practically neck and neck with Mercedes. Their reliability is absolute perfection, and they launch off the grid like absolute missiles.
But they are bleeding on the straights. The data is clear. They are down roughly 20 to 25 horsepower compared to that Mercedes power unit.
Which, okay, 25 horsepower. In my commuter car, maybe I don't notice that, but in a 1,000 horsepower F1 car, missing 25 horses feels like a death sentence on a track with massive straights.
It really is. Mechanically, it all comes down to combustion efficiency inside that engine block. They are trying to extract maximum thermal energy from every single drop of fuel.
So what does the math actually look like to find that power?
It's brutal. A 2% gain in combustion efficiency gives you maybe 11 horsepower. So to find 22 or 25 horsepower, they need a full 4% miracle in the thermal dynamic.
That's like trying to get the explosive force of dynamite out of a firecracker.
Right, and it takes so much time. You can't just download a software patch. You are redesigning combustion chambers and physically stressing new metal alloys.
So wait, if they are down that much power, how is Charles Leclerc even in the conversation? How is he competing with a fundamentally slower car?
2 words: car synergy. An F1 car is an entire ecosystem. Ferrari knows their engine is slightly weak, so they optimized everything else to compensate.
Like their starts. Because their clutch sequence is legendary right now.
Exactly. If Leclerc launches perfectly and beats Russell into turn 1, that 25 horsepower deficit doesn't matter anymore.
Because he controls the track position. And we're back to the dirty air weapon.
You got it. Leclerc can park that Ferrari right on the apex, make the car incredibly wide, and force the Mercedes to choke on his turbulent wake. If Maranello actually finds that missing 4% of engine power, Ferrari becomes an unsolvable puzzle on race day.
Okay, so McLaren is betting the house on aero. Ferrari is praying to the racing gods for a combustion miracle. But let's be real, neither of these strategies works if Mercedes doesn't leave the door wide open for them.
And they are leaving it open. They have a glaring Achilles heel.
It's so weird to say this about Mercedes, but they are just terrible at race starts.
It's the ultimate paradox right now.
You literally have an Olympic sprinter who breaks world records in practice, but trips over their own shoelaces the second the starting gun fires. If you bog down at the line, Raw speed means nothing. The pack just swallows you whole.
Right, the launch sequence is this incredibly delicate dance between the clutch bite point, the tire temps, and throttle application. Mercedes simply cannot find the sweet spot.
And think about the upcoming calendar. We have Monaco and Hungary coming up.
Oh, those tracks will punish them severely.
Exactly. They're tight, twisting street circuits. Overtaking is mathematically nearly impossible with these heavy modern cars.
On a track like Monaco, track position is 90% of the battle. Mercedes could qualify on pole by an entire second. But if they botch the launch and drop behind a McLaren, it's game over.
They'll just stare at a Ferrari gearbox for 70 laps with nowhere to pass.
Exactly. Raw pace cannot save you in Monaco if you're stuck in traffic.
And it isn't just the physical starts. The reliability gremlins are so weird, like that screenshot glitch we talked about at the top of the deep dive. Russell is doing 200 miles per hour in Suzuka, and his screen freezes. How does a UI bug actually cost him a real-world position to Leclerc?
Because the steering wheel is the brain of the car. It's not just for pointing the tires. It's got dozens of rotary dials, toggles, it controls brake migration, the differential, engine maps.
But a driver is constantly changing settings mid-corner.
Every single corner, based on tire wear, fuel load, everything. So if the screen freezes, Russell is flying totally blind. He can't adjust the diff to rotate the car. He can't see his shift lights.
And at 200 miles per hour, that's incredibly dangerous.
It completely shatters their subconscious rhythm. The second a digital glitch happens, the driver's brain panics and focuses on the screen instead of the braking zone. They miss the apex by 6 inches, lose their exit speed, and boom, Ferrari blows right past them.
Millions of dollars of aerodynamic perfection undone by a single line of bad UI code. That's insane. But alongside the software bugs, there is a much darker theory circulating in our paddock data right now.
Oh, the mind games with the testing regulations.
Yes. We need to talk about the aerodynamic testing restrictions. The FIA uses this sliding scale to force parity, right?
Right. Basically, the lower you are in the championship points, the more wind tunnel time and CFD simulations you are legally allowed to run.
And there are multiple checkpoints during the year where the FIA resets those allowances based on the current standings.
Exactly. And the most explosive theory we are tracking right now is that Mercedes might be actively sandbagging.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me the car that pulled an 8/10 gap in Australia is actually holding back?
It is completely plausible. Mercedes might be running lower engine modes, just managing their pace, so they win by a couple of seconds instead of 30 seconds. They don't want to show their ultimate hand.
But why risk it? Why play with fire like that?
Because if they obliterate the field early and build a massive points lead, the FIA's sliding scale hits them hard. Ferrari and McLaren would get a colossal injection of wind tunnel hours.
Oh, wow. So by keeping the points artificially tight right now, Mercedes starves their rivals of that regulatory boost.
It's a high-speed game of chicken. Mercedes is risking a bad race start costing them a win just to choke out McLaren's development budget for the long term.
Yeah, it's just ruthless. It sets this incredible three-way race against the clock. Does McLaren get their MCL 40 upgrade dialed in first? Does Ferrari find that 4% engine miracle? Or does Mercedes finally fix their software and stop bleeding track position?
Whoever cracks their specific puzzle first is going to completely dictate the summer leg of this championship.
Man, the tension is unbelievable. Now, we talked about the big three, but we cannot ignore the elephant in the room. What on earth is happening with Red Bull?
It's just a grim reality check over in that garage right now.
They aren't even in the conversation at the front. I mean, reading Isaac Hajar's quotes from our internal briefings, it's brutal. He point-blank admitted the engine is fine, but the fundamental chassis is terrible.
And that terrible chassis completely caps their potential. We saw it in Shanghai. That track is all about long, high-speed, sweeping corners where you desperately need mechanical grip and aero balance.
Straight line speed doesn't save you there.
No, it doesn't. And Red Bull got absolutely swallowed by the midfield.
It really highlights a brutal truth about Formula One. You can have a power unit that spits fire and tears up the tarmac, but if your chassis is broken, you are going absolutely nowhere.
Right, an engine just makes rotational force. The chassis, the suspension, the aero downforce has to physically translate that force into forward momentum. A monster engine and a bad chassis is like trying to run an Olympic sprint on an ice rink.
All the power, zero grip.
Exactly. Until they completely rip up their aero philosophy, Red Bull is just spectating this title fight.
So, bringing all this telemetry and all these blueprints together, the narrative for this season is just explosive. Beating Mercedes might look impossible on paper without them having a total engineering meltdown. I mean, the raw pace is there. But McLaren and Ferrari are finding the exact pressure points to lean on.
The relentless pressure is the real story here. Even if Mercedes survives and takes the title this year, McLaren's insane upgrade aggression and Ferrari's engine hunt are building a hyper-competitive monster for next season.
They're forcing Mercedes to burn their budget right now.
Exactly. Mercedes can't coast. They have to spend their wind tunnel hours defending today instead of building next year's car.
And that's why we do these deep dives, because following F1 isn't just about watching the red lights go out on Sunday. It is about understanding these invisible, high-stakes chess moves happening months in advance.
It's Andrea Stella doing budget math and hiding a car from Barcelona.
Yes. It's Ferrari engineers losing sleep over a thermal efficiency deficit. It's Mercedes mathematically calculating the exact lap time they need to run to manipulate FIA regulations.
The Sunday race is just the final exam. The actual war is fought in the simulator, in the wind tunnel, and in the accounting department.
Which leaves us with a wild thought for you to chew on before the next race. We always glorify the drivers spraying champagne on the podium, and we should. They are pulling crazy G-forces at the limit of human reaction. But when you look at how McLaren manipulated the budget cap for a massive upgrade, or how Mercedes lost a race because a tiny digital screen crashed, you have to ask yourself, is the true world champion of modern F1 the guy behind the wheel, or is it actually the lead software engineer and the chief accountant? Keep an eye on those steering wheels next time they line up on the grid. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.